Today we are supposed to speak, we are required to speak about the criminalization of war, about our freedoms. We live in an age when people desire to be free. They want to be free from almost everything. They want to be free to pursue their political ends. They want to be free to have friends and brothers. They want to be free to say what they like. They want to be free to have their own newspapers. And now, of course, they have the internet where they are very, very free, including free to tell more lies. But that is freedom. Why do we want freedom? We want freedom because we don't like to be without freedom. But the thing that we cherish most is our own lives. We want to free to pursue our own life to the end, to the day when it is determined that we should live this life. We want to be free to live in this world. But although we see demonstrations against almost everything, we don't see very many demonstrations to free us from the chances of being killed in wars. Wars today are different from the wars of yesterday. Before, armies would meet on battlefields, led by their generals from the front, and they would fight, and they would kill each other. The people they kill would be the soldiers who are well equipped to defend themselves. Of course, if they're not so skilled with their weapons, they get killed, and they get defeated. And that would be the end of the battle. But today's wars are different. No one is regarded as non-combatants. All of us have been made combatants in a war not of our own making. We didn't want this war. But whether we like it or not, when there is a war, we are exposed to the danger of being killed. Not just one or two or 10 or 100, but by the millions. 2 world wars were fought, ostensibly to put an end to wars. But as you know, it did not. These 2 wars, which killed some 70 million people, did nothing of the sort. We still have wars. Maybe Europe is a little bit more free from wars, but other countries, small countries in particular, live in fear of actions being taken by the powerful to ensure that we support them. And towards that end, we now have this struggle to achieve regime change. To achieve regime change, they are prepared to do a lot of unsavory things. They are willing to persuade people in the country to oppose their governments, ostensibly because the governments are bad, but mainly because the governments do not favor the big power. They would provide money, they would provide weapons, they would instigate, they would do anything possible so as to achieve regime change. And in the process, they may war on the country. We see these things happening in the Middle East, but we cannot be sure it will not happen in Southeast Asia. We are fortunate up to the moment our governments are very smart perhaps in being friendly with the people whose intention is to kill them. So we see in the Middle East things being changed. New governments are being installed, ostensibly for the good of the people or the country. But actually, what is wanted is to install governments that favor this great power called the United States of America, a great democracy. And we are told that democracy is the best form of government. But one should always remember that democracies have killed much more people than their enemies. So today we are seeing wars being fought, governments being overthrown through demonstration, etc. And we find that people have less regard for life than they should be. For example, we are seeing today the negotiations to end the conflict in Syria. Both sides agreed to come to the table, not to decide on ending the war, but merely to promote their own political agenda. And because of the political agenda, they did not care that 2 million people have now been expelled or forced to leave Syria and live in terrible conditions in the countries nearby. 2 million people are now exposed to the cold winters of that area. Instead of deciding how to put an end to the misery of these people, they were more interested in regime change, in ending the attempt of the regime to defend themselves, and also to support continuation of the wars that they are fighting. So we don't care about human life. We have lived, or we have had a civilization that is 5,000 years old, but we have not improved in any way. We still think that a good way to settle a dispute is to kill. And we accept that it is even legal to kill millions of people, while we say that the killing of a person is murder and the killer should be punished even through hanging. But when a leader of a country decides to kill millions of people, that is legal, that is acceptable, and we do not condemn them. In fact, we shake their hands, their bloody hands. The hands that kill millions of people are glorified. They are awarded even peace awards. This is the irony of the whole thing. But I do hope that with the establishment of a chair on global peace, we would be able to discuss the mechanics of global peace, the mechanics of war, the reasons why we still go to war. Basically, it is because we accept war. We accept the mass killings in a war because we say it is legitimate, but truly it is not legitimate. It is impossible, it is incongruous and wrong to think that killing one person is a crime, killing a million people is not a crime. How can we change the mindsets of people? Changing the mindsets of people is very difficult, especially something about which we have accepted as normal. There was a time when we regard slavery as normal. If you borrow money and you fail to pay, you become a debt slave for the rest of your life. If you do something wrong, you may even be made a slave. And if you are short of slaves, why? You should then raid some poor countries and take away their citizens to your own country in ships that are really dungeons, where the slaves would die on the way to the new country they are to serve in, and yet we feel nothing about it. Or rather, the people of that time thought that it was legitimate to trade in slaves and to enslave people. But gradually, slowly, the struggle was on to make slavery, or at least slave trading, illegal. It took a long time for countries to regard slavery as trading in slaves as illegal. It took a much longer time for people to decide that slavery itself is illegal. Today, we don't see slaves anymore, but I believe there are all kinds of other slaves around, including women who are made slaves of some men. This is happening today, but that is not what is accepted by us. We think that slavery is wrong and the human community should not permit slavery. Now we want to have a struggle against war, against the killing of people in order to resolve conflicts within nations. This is worse than slavery. The slave may even live and live long enough to reproduce themselves so that today the sons of slaves can become presidents of countries even. The sons of slaves can actually live a good life. But the struggle took a long time, and in the case of making war a crime, it will take a much longer time. That is why it is important that young people should understand the horrors of war, should see war as a crime, and should want to punish the people who commit this crime, because this crime is worse than the crime of enslaving people. That is going to be the task of this check. How do they implant new ideas in people, new values in people? How do they do this to the young, so that the young will grow up to detest war and to object to war, so that leaders of tomorrow reject war as a solution to conflicts within nations? One day it will become a reality. Not in my lifetime, maybe not even in your lifetime, but the struggle must have a beginning. Confucius said that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. So we are beginning this journey to change the mindsets of people, not just in this country, but throughout the world. I believe that it can be done. I believe that future generations will fight to make war a crime, because war is indeed a crime against humanity, a crime against the weak, a crime that is normally perpetrated by the rich and the strong against the poor and the weak. There is no justice in wars, because invariably they will fight wars only when they think they can win. They become very aggressive when they think that they can win a war in 3 months. That was what was predicted with the war against Iraq. Within 3 months, through shock and awe, shocking people by killing them, they thought that in 3 months the whole war would be over. But 10 years later, they have not won anything. That is the reality of war. That is not so easy, even for the powerful, to conduct a war successfully in these days. because even if they manage to occupy and rule the country, the people will not be still, will not allow them to continue to rule. They will fight back until they regain the autonomy, the independence of their country. We see this as examples in the case of Vietnam, in the case of Afghanistan, in the case of Iraq. The people rejected their so-called saviors, and in the end the saviors had to go away empty-handed. Unfortunately, they left behind such enmity between the people themselves that they are now helping to kill each other, doing the good work of their oppressors. We must learn what to do when we have conflicts between nations, because forever there will be conflict, especially between neighbors. We have no problem with South America, I think. We don't want to conquer Argentina, or for that matter, Peru or Chile. That is the job of the South Americans, to conquer and fight each other. But we always have problem with our neighbors, with claims and counterplay claims and overlapping claims. We can resolve this through going to war. But war will really not resolve our problem. Because even if we win, the resentment will go on. And when there is an opportunity for the enemy who has become stronger to regain their lost territory, they will continue to attack. They will attack. And then there will be more wars. Conflicts can only be resolved through mutual agreement to end the conflict. We in Malaysia believe in peaceful negotiation. We negotiated with Thailand, for example, and we decided we should share the spoils from the seas on the northeast coast of Malaysia, 50-50 between ourselves, between Thailand and Malaysia, and we are not at war with Thailand. I don't think the Thais hate us, or we hate them, because we see so many people going to Hat Yai and Bangkok. We have a problem with Indonesia and with Singapore, overlapping claim. We went to the World Court, and the World Court decided that Sipadan and Ligatan belong to Malaysia. They were really very good judges. Unfortunately, they made a mistake with a claim over this rock in the sea between Singapore and Johor, and they awarded the rock to Singapore. But then when we go to the court, we can never be sure we are going to win. That is why it is better to negotiate rather than go to the courts and leave it in the hands of third parties who may not be sympathetic or who may not understand the rightness of our stand. So if possible, negotiate. We have negotiated with Brunei. With the Philippines, the claim is still there. Some mad people tried to conquer Malaysia with 200 people, and they are paying the price for it. But the Philippines itself has decided that while they will retain the claim, they will not go to war with Malaysia. And that is what it should be, because warring with Malaysia will only cause a lot of damage to the Philippines and to Malaysia, and will gain nothing from it. So what I'm trying to stress is that war is not a solution. Killing people is not a solution. The best solution to conflicts is either to negotiate, to submit to arbitration, or to go to a court of law. And to be prepared to lose, not only to win, but also to lose. If you go to war, you may win, But the bitterness, the hatred that you leave behind in your enemies will ensure that in future there will be a counter-attack to regain the territory that they have lost. But if we have agreed with them that we should either share the territory, or we should give the territory to the rightful owners, then there will be no bitterness after that. Of course, if we decide to go to a world court, you are all lawyers, I understand here. You know, lawyers can argue from both ends. They can support or they can reject, depending upon who employs them. But that is the system. So we would rather go to the courts, and if you go to the courts, you may lose, you may gain, but that is far better than killing your enemies. So I do hope that with the founding of this new chair for global peace in this Kuliah of Law, appropriately in this Kuliah of Law in University Islam Antarabangsa, we will learn more about the mechanics of the human mind, which still supports killing as a means of resolving conflicts. And understanding that, you may come up with an answer that will help us to make war a crime, and for the criminals, there are people who launch aggressive wars, to be punished. We have set up a tribunal without teeth, because the tribunal could not bite, but the tribunal has found some people guilty of aggression, of killing people. We can only do that at the moment. But one day there should be a world court where we can appeal to and submit to the world court, so that the determination, the findings of the world court can be enforced on the people who committed this crime of war. The world court should not be a court of the victors, as happened in Nuremberg, as happened in Tokyo. That was a false court. It's set up by the victors to try the vanquished. And as you can see, they punish only the vanquished, whereas the victors too were guilty of killing people. But they got away with it because they have a tame world court to work for them. We should not work for that kind of court. We should work for a neutral world court that will punish those who are indeed guilty of the crime of aggressive wars involving the killing of people. Whether it is to solve a problem or not is a different matter. Just as you cannot go and murder somebody because you have differences with him, you cannot go and kill the people of another country because you have a dispute with that country. Only then, only when war is banished, war is made illegal and criminal, only then we can say that we are truly civilized. Until then, we must consider ourselves as being primitive people, people without any civilization, without any culture, who resort to means that should not be upheld by people with the ability to think and assess things for themselves, to understand between right and wrong, between what is legal and what is not. So I hope and pray that the setting up of this chair will contribute in some measure to this effort to make war a crime. And it should do this under the guidance of Professor Johan Galtung, who is very experienced in negotiating for peace, and I believe he will be able to make this chair something that will be recognized worldwide. I thank you.